So, what's your take on the celery juice guy? Is it legit?
I'm assuming the celery juice guy is the medical medium.
As a mom who has been frustrated with American formula options, I would love to hear Dr. Cole's opinion on the infant formula changes coming through the HHS.
Why would you say such an irresponsible thing when there is an outbreak of a contagious disease going on?
It's getting hot in here. I'm a little nervous. The reality is, I think they misunderstood our point, right? In this, I don't know if they listened to the full episode or maybe just a clip on social media. I think that could be. What's up, and welcome to the Art of Being Well. We have some exciting news. I don't do this every episode, but I feel like I do it more on the Ask Me Anything episodes. We're giving away some free healthy stuff, if that's your thing. We're giving away free supplement protocol stacks that we have at drwillcole.com. It's the Art of Being Well supplement line you can check out with hormone protocols, gut health, inflammation, brain health, different options there. And we have the Art of Being Well apothecary line, which I don't really talk about in the podcast that much.
You need to.
Therapeutically herbal, the Art of Being Well apothecary. Check it out. And you can win one of those, free signed book. You can pick which one of the 4 books that I've written, or you could pick a free functional medicine telehealth consult with one of us. And we love meeting people that listen to the podcast in a proper telehealth consultation.
I made this joke before,
setting.
but someday I'm going to make the clinic director decision and just give someone a joint consult with all 3 of us. It'll be like a round table consult.
What a gift.
What
a gift.
What a gift.
Truly.
3 for 1. So for a chance to win, head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review The Art of Being Well there. Tell us what you love about the show. You could leave your Instagram handle in the Apple Podcast review itself, or take a screenshot of that review and message me on Instagram at Dr. Will Cole. And the team and I go through the messages on Instagram as well as read the Apple Podcast reviews themselves, randomly pick winners. We'll reach out to you. You can tell us which one you want, either the books, the protocol, or the telehealth consult. And then we get you either send it out to you or get you scheduled for it. And I do read the 1 and 2 star reviews too. Yeah.
I will just let you know, if you want to win, I probably wouldn't leave a 1 or 2 star review.
Right. That's not increasing your chances.
Will is a glutton for punishment.
Yeah.
He's like, what mean things
Yeah,
did
but
someone say
there's
about
so
me?
many more positives than
Yes.
negatives. But the negative reviews, which are kind of funny to read, they're normally about a specific guest.
Yes.
And it's like they really didn't like that guest. And it was like, how dare I bring them on?
Yeah.
And platform them. But it's called The Art of Being Well, right? I want to hear diversity of thought, different walks of life, and learn about the art and science of wellness in all different layers, like mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, physical health, societal health, and discuss all the different sides of it.
How boring would life be if we canceled everybody that wasn't like us?
Yes, I would. That's
Robots.
a good question. So this is anyway. So I would love to see all the nice ones though. Let them come in. I read them all and it means a lot to me. So thank you. It really helps the show out. All right. This is an Ask Me Anything episode, guys. So it is about twice a month lately. We've been doing entire episodes devoted to your burning health questions. So send them in. They could be about any wellness trend, research, health science research study on that you've read, maybe health news, hot topics, or specific questions about your health journey. Maybe it could be anything we see clinically, like autoimmune conditions, hormone problems, fertility, gut health, inflammation, all the things. So,
or random things you want to know about Dr. Cole. I mean, we will spill the tea.
Oh, yes. If you want to know anything about Dr. Cole and what he's really eating, drinking, doing, we will 100%.
We're here for it.
They will sell me out. They will sell me out.
Absolutely.
They will. All right. Thanks, guys. Anyway, so to help me out every Ask Me Anything episode, we have 2 brilliant members from my functional medicine telehealth team. They're functional diagnostic nutrition practitioners. We've worked together for a long time. So you'll get an insider's look of our approach to different health topics. And this is kind of like what it's like for a patient meeting too. Like we were going over different things. It's a lot more serious then.
Yes.
We let ourselves like a little bit looser. And
a little sillier.
We laugh. Yeah, we laugh more in the show to make it entertaining for you all. But we're getting our job done. And super serious.
I'm
sometimes.
always funny. I always keep you guys laughing.
Yeah,
well,
patient team
always is a
meetings.
very strong superlative.
Yes.
I'm the joy of this office. Okay.
Oh boy. Debatable.
Your own cheerleader. No one can
It's true.
falter for that.
It's so true.
What's the first question?
All right, let's get started. So question 1, Dr. Cole, what are your thoughts about the EBU blood oil change, and would you recommend it? Can you please explain it to us?
Okay. I don't know. It's normally not called the blood oil change, but it's
Yeah.
extracorporeal blood oxygenation and ozone. So it is a kind of combination of ozone, which is O3. It's an oxygen molecule with an extra oxygen attached to it, and actual oxygen. So it's a way to increase oxygenation of your blood and act as a sort of cleansing antimicrobial purification process with ozone. So it's different than IV ozone, which IV ozone, you're pulling a specific amount of blood, mixing it with ozone, O3, and then putting it back in the body as a way to get systemic ozone in the body through the blood as the medium. This is different because it is the blood leaving your body, going through a machine to add oxygen and ozone, and then through another vein being added back in. So it's a more, I would say, intensive. EBU is more intensive than IV ozone by itself, and it's more sophisticated as well. So yeah, we recommend ozone therapy for our telehealth patients, and we recommend it and put it within their protocols for people that have mold toxicity, chronic Lyme disease, different inflammatory problems. Yeah, so that is something that we recommend. And there's different ways to do ozone, not EBU specifically, but regular ozone, rectal insufflation, which is a fun time. There's ways to do it, not breathing it indirectly, but breathing actual ozone oil. You can do things.
Right.
I would not recommend doing this on your own. Let me be very, very, very careful about this. That ozone is toxic to breathe in. It is not good. But if it's done properly with the right setting, with the right supervision from a medical expert, someone in functional medicine, then it can be a tool within the toolbox. And certainly anything involving IVs, you're not doing that at home. But something like rectal insufflation, if someone's trained properly, that is something that they can have a home kit and do it on their own with the proper supervision and guidance. So I am a fan of it. It's not it's going to be part of a larger protocol. It's not the only thing that they're doing, but I love it as a tool within the toolbox to help with people that have biotoxin issues and different inflammatory problems, chronic fatigue syndrome, mitochondrial problems. Those are some clinical applications.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like you said, there's many different methods, like the ear insufflation. You know, we've had a lot of people who've used that. Yeah, in the ear one, I know that it's been really helpful for a lot of sinus issues, and especially when we're clearing things like mold and wanting to clear sinuses, that's something we can see a lot of times. So I love that there's different methods for that. I love that you had also mentioned that EBU treatments are a little bit more intensive. We've definitely had a handful of patients who have utilized that. And again, especially if it's for whether it's mold toxicity, autoimmunity, things like that, it is cleansing the blood. And for some patients can be very helpful, bringing relief to the body, especially with pain or other areas. But it is intensive. And for some people, it actually can be too much sometimes too. So I do think that making sure that you always, go low and slow, right? So and of course, when you're working with a clinic, they should be aware of that. Yeah. But yeah, we've definitely seen it be helpful for a handful of patients.
Yeah, Emily and I have actually both done it as well when we've been at wellness retreats with a team. You feel like a science experiment, like you do. You're like hooked up. You're like, there's tubes going, blood's running. I love that.
Sounds horrible.
It does.
Tubes going, blood's running.
Everything's everywhere.
It's not as murderous.
No, it's not. But it's clinical.
Yeah.
And I liked what you said though, is that this is part of a larger thing. Because I think a lot of people will get into these sort of modalities and therapies and they're like, this is going to be it. I'm going to see my relief after this. And they're like 3 sessions and your symptoms are going to be cured. And it's like, well, if that is for you, fantastic. I'm glad your body is has that much resiliency.
What the body's capable of.
Yeah, like there's some, you obviously have more resiliency. This was the thing that topped you over into the the portion of your body that needed that relief, but also don't be discouraged. It's part of a larger picture. And if you have one session and you don't notice significant improvements, it doesn't mean abandon it. It just means maybe you need to work with a practitioner to see what other things you need to layer in.
Yeah. And what I found is, so for some of our patients, they've done a lot, right? And we're coming in, organizing it, and either changing the dosages of certain things, giving something more time, or bringing in maybe a few other pivot tools within the toolbox that in concert, that sort of entourage effect of lots of different things or several different things can really be the needle mover. So I agree with Andrew. It's like, don't give up per se. Right. It may just be maybe more time. Maybe the dosage needs change. Maybe you need to add a few other things to really give it the heavier handed approach in a good way, the thorough approach to see it through. And that's the science and art of wellness too. That's another sort of aspect of why this show's been going on for the past 4 or 5 years. It's because we love exploring the sort of duality of a wellness.
Yeah. I agree. All right, next question.
That was easy.
Yeah. This was one of those we chose just because it was like we'd gotten asked a couple of times, so let's throw it in there. All right, question number 2. I would love to know Dr. Cole's take on HRT, or hormone replacement therapy, specifically around testosterone. What do you think of the recent FDA change on the warning labels of testosterone replacement therapy?
Yeah, so I actually did a YouTube video about this. I don't go on, but we actually have the full episodes of The Art of Being Well on YouTube, which I don't know if I've said this, maybe once
you mentioned
twice.
it, I think.
Okay, but it's a newer thing. So anyways, I did a one-off about these are different health hot topics, so you can check it out there. But briefly, what I'll say here is that there used to be a warning label of increased heart attack and stroke for testosterone replacement therapy, but based on a new study, it showed really there was negligible difference between placebo and people on TRT. So they are taking the warning label of heart attack and stroke off of the hormone replacement therapy for testosterone replacement therapy. So I think this is something that we knew in the sort of hormone replacement space, that if it's done appropriately, the studies were flawed, that they were basing it on. I'm all for being cautious where we need to be cautious, but I thought it was kind of an overcorrection with TRT and, the different hormone replacement therapy. There's also stigma around other HRT, estrogen, bioidentical estrogen too.
Yeah.
So anyways, there is going to be a label, and some already have this, for blood pressure changes, which I think is a solid enough reason to have it, because we know hormones can modulate blood pressure. Yeah. If you're prone to high blood pressure, it should be monitored by your doctor if you're on hormone replacement therapy. But my take on this is, let's get the body to do it on its own. Why do most people have low testosterone or hormone, estrogen, progesterone issues? It's not because of a hormone replacement therapy deficiency. So most people have insulin resistance, they have inflammation, their nervous system's dysregulated, so their neuroimmunoendocrine axis is dysregulated. The intersection between their nervous system, their immune system, i.e. inflammation, and their endocrine system, the hormones, are imbalanced. Why? That doesn't happen in a vacuum. So having this sort of upstream root approach would be our take on this, to get the body to produce the proper testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, thyroid hormone, the way that it's meant to be. But once you've done that, maybe it's environmental toxins that are suppressing the body, maybe the gut-brain axis, maybe it's poor vagal tone. This is where health history, context, labs come into play, because I'd love the body to be producing the hormones endogenously or naturally. But once we've done that, and maybe the person's improved 70%, 80%, they're very happy about that. But maybe to fill in that 20 to 30% gap, there is a low dose of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy that would be appropriate, that would really provide symptom relief, because there's people that do need that and benefit from it. So having this sort of both and not either or approach would be our take. It wouldn't be just, don't change your lifestyle at all. Don't deal with any epigenetic, environmental. Don't deal with the inflammatory problems. Just be putting on TRT. That's not what I would recommend. But that's how it's mostly applied in the sort of mainstream setting, which I think, if it provides you relief, good for you. But normally there's a honeymoon period where you do see some benefits from these HRTs, but then it's not dealing with the root cause. You're sort of flooding the body with exogenous hormones, but there's hormonal resistance. The body's not able to make good use of it. And look, some people, when you get their body healthier, they don't even need the HRT anymore.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we always tell patients that it's not that hormone imbalance is a small issue, because symptomatically it probably feels pretty big, but that it's a secondary problem. And if we can actually get to the root and fix the problem, we're going to see your hormones function so much better. And then, like you said, Dr. Cole, there might be that last 20-30% that we do need to bring something in to move the needle a little bit further.
Judicious use of HRT.
Yeah, we're not anti it.
Yeah.
It has to make sense for your, not just your short-term goals, but your long-term
And
goals.
retesting. So a lot of people are put on these HRTs that are, they're never really looking at the numbers long term.
Oh my gosh, I know. You get it, and it's like too high, or it's like really out of whack.
And they feel too low, because what happens is
Yeah.
the body can be flooded with the hormones, but the receptor sites that's taking in the hormones is resistant to it. So that's why they had a honeymoon period, but then it kind of built a resistance over time.
Yep.
And look, most people have low, I mentioned this already, but most people have low testosterone because of insulin resistance. Especially men are over aromatizing and converting testosterone into estrogen because of the insulin resistance and the inflammation. And many women have progesterone, testosterone, estrogen imbalances because of similar things, different inflammatory problems where the body isn't able to methylate and detox these hormones appropriately, so they can have things like estrogen dominance, which is really just excess estrogen and not enough, or excess estrone, E1, and not enough E3. These are different types of estrogen metabolites or isomers. So these are things that we take into context.
And these are all the things that aren't getting looked at on labs.
No.
They're running like a basic blood panel.
Yeah, they're just like, you're right, that's a good point. If any labs are ran, they're just sort of basic sweeping snapshots in time. And then look, again, if it's working for you and you feel great and your labs look great, then more power to you. But I think a lot of things are falling through the cracks with this sort of blanket statement, approach about HRT. Yeah. So that's what my take on I'm happy because it enables people who do need it, as far as the warning label is concerned, they're able to get what they need without sort of the red tape behind it. But hopefully you understand our take on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
All right.
Next question. So, what's your take on the celery juice guy? Is it legit to think that viruses cause all of the, I don't know why I'm getting a little sassy with it, but I love it. Is it legit to think that viruses cause all of these health problems we deal with today?
Okay.
Should we clarify who celery juice guy is?
Yeah. So I'm assuming
I want to say that from now on. Celery juice guy.
I'm assuming the celery juice guy is the medical medium. Anthony Williams, I think is his name. I haven't met Anthony. I don't know him. People like him. And we've been asked this question for a long time.
Yes.
His books are not new.
Years and years and years.
Yeah, so this is not an unusual question, actually. So we have a middle ground view on this too. I think mainstream medicine oftentimes, by mainstream medicine, I don't mean the science, because there's actually a lot of exciting science around how viruses impact the immune system, but this sort of average setting within this sort of mainstream medicine, people and their doctor, there's not a lot of conversation around this, viruses and impacting autoimmunity and different inflammatory problems. And then I think there's, on the other side of the spectrum, there's people like the medical medium and other people within the alternative health space, I think because of him, where everything is caused by a virus. And I think the truth, as it is oftentimes, it's somewhere in the middle, and the context around this matters. So it is something that we do see on labs, right? I mean, we have a high percentage of telehealth patients who have different human leukocyte antigen genetic variants, which means not that it's only about that, but there's a genetic component to this with both HLA and methylation, and you could also probably indirectly include detoxification gene variants, where their body has a lot of different variables going on, not just the virus side of it, but there is a biotoxin component piece of the puzzle, which viruses can be implicated in that. But so can molds, so can bacteria, so can parasites, so can other pathogens like this. So viruses should be part of the conversation, and it should be ruled out or ruled in. So we would look at that. We would look at the viral load. We would look at how the immune system's behaving with that viral load. And then what is the genetic component, meaning is this person more likely to have chronic long-term responses from these viral infections? So a lot of the viruses, as far as the research is concerned, is based in the herpes family. Herpes comes from the Greek word herpine, which means to creep. So these are little creepy viruses that, especially if somebody's more genetically susceptible, things like cytomegalovirus, human herpes 6 virus, Epstein-Barr virus, other viruses like this, even herpes simplex 1 and 2, are, for some people, they get these viruses, they may have an acute issue, they may not even know they have it. We all have viruses in our body. And for some people, it's an acute issue and then it calms back down. And for some people, because of these genetic variants or stress or trauma or other health variables, environmental toxins, it can be that straw that broke the camel's back. It could be that tipping point where viruses can be, at the very least, a piece of the puzzle. So that's our take on it. There was actually a study that I pulled up here because I remember reading it a couple of months ago. It was in Alzheimer's and Dementia. This is a conventional medicine journal. They looked at 575 participants. I want to get your take on this, both of you. 575 participants in the Baltimore area, and they tracked these people. The study came out in 2023, but they tracked these people since 1981. Wow. So really an amazing long-term study. Researchers measured antibody levels to 5 pathogens: herpes simplex 1, cytomegalovirus, varicella zoster, chickenpox, shingles, Epstein-Barr virus, and also a parasite as well. And they correlated these with scores on a global cognitive test. They found the higher the antibody counts, indicating past exposure to more infections, which we measure for telehealth patients, were associated with poor cognitive performance, even after adjusting for age, sex, race, and the ApoE4, which we also look at. It's the Alzheimer's genetic increases likelihood of Alzheimer's later on in life. Interestingly, the link was stronger in those without ApoE44, suggesting infections might have an independent contributing factor, meaning genetics aren't everything, is another way of putting that.
Yeah.
The effect was additive. More infections correlated with worse cognitive scores. For example, participants with positivity to 3 viruses showed a higher risk of cognitive impairment. Pretty wild study. And similar, that was just in 2023, but I've seen over the past 10 years studies linking Epstein-Barr virus to other autoimmune problems. And Alzheimer's is not technically an autoimmune, but there are researchers that would say that Alzheimer's has an autoimmune component to it.
Right. Yes.
But overt autoimmunity, like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Hashimoto's disease, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, all in the scientific literature, conventional mainstream institutions have looked at these pathogens as having a direct causative inflammatory response, meaning the immune system's irritated by the pathogen and it's cross-reacting or molecular mimicry against the tissue. But that's not to say the viruses are the cause of all of these issues. And I think that's where the nuance and the context is
where
lost.
Celery comes in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is like Celery guy, poor guy. He's more than that, right? We want to respect him as human. But he's known for this. Yeah, and the 1 and 2 stars on the Apple Podcast review. Yes, there are worse things that could be called. So I guess why not? But yeah, so that's my take on it.
So hearing that isn't surprising to me at all, and I don't think it is to you guys either. We see this all the time. Telling me that someone who has a large toxic load or pathogenic whether it's pathogenic, environmental, saying that they have poor mental health as they age.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
And we're seeing, and we talked about the studies linking COVID-19 with autoimmune problems too, and that's a virus, and some would say maybe altered virus that maybe can be more immunoreactive. But regardless, no matter where the virus came from, whether nature or tinkered with, can modulate the immune system in a way that can trigger, for some people, not everybody, an autoimmune condition. So COVID's linked to triggering things like POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which we've talked about, actually, I think in the last AMA. So go back and listen to it. It's a similar mechanism of action, really, whether you talk about COVID or Epstein-Barr virus or cytomegalovirus, human herpes 6 virus, anyone.
Yeah, I think so many people honestly would feel validated by a study like that, right? Of like, I'm not crazy. Like I've had all of these different viral exposures and like you said, it clinically correlates to how they're feeling. Like I'd say most people with that type of load are going to feel like they have brain fog, poor mental, emotional health, anything like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you have to look at the mechanism of action. I mean, you're looking at viruses that can be re-triggered by other stressors in the body.
Yeah.
So like you said, Dr. Cole, we carry, 95% of the U.S. or more is estimated to carry
antibody
responses, meaning that you've been exposed to this at some point in time in your life.
To Epstein-Barr virus,
EBV. So this is when you're looking at that, just that one singular thing, and you're looking at that sheer amount of numbers of millions and millions of people that carry this latent viral load. Well, yes, then you add on toxic relationships and environmental issues, and then you add in genetics and
unresolved trauma.
Yeah. So do I think that celery juice is going to cure this? No. I think that we can look at things that help support that antiviral load and to help with the immune system and gut health. And
with that said, if juicing helps you, and it may have been a needle mover for you, then more power to you. And we recommend it for people who need it, but it's not going to be a magic cure-all for people.
Yeah, and that's what
across the board.
And that's what I think we're saying is hey, just like we were talking about with the EBU, this is not saying like if this makes you feel good and you wake up and you're like digestively, I feel amazing and I feel like I am more alert or some of the things that people say.
And people
with that.
do see that.
Yeah, and then great, continue to have it. It's a whole food nutrient. Cool, like keep doing that.
Yeah,
but is this going to be what cures your viral load? I mean, it's more complex than that.
Yeah.
And I think
and to be fair, celery juice guy, he does recommend more stuff than that too, right? He has like a whole food protocol. And I like that he's food-based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we also see pitfalls, just like with when you swing too much one way and
right. So he basically has everyone on a vegan diet. Long term, I think obviously is significantly problematic. So I think there's lots of good, and I think how do we apply this in a way that works for someone long term?
Well, and here's the thing: we use a lot of those foods in a whole food diet, not exclusively with that alone.
Yeah.
So I think that's the part of the conversation again is don't get so myopic and think that this one thing is going to cure everything for you. We're not saying it doesn't work. We're just saying, is that the entirety of the picture, and is there other components that we need to consider?
Yeah, our culture can really struggle with that sometimes of like, oh, this is it. This is the one thing. And like, celery juice, I would love it. You might die.
I would probably balloon up and float away. Like it would just be really.
Because celery juice is higher in FODMAP. So for people that don't know, like if someone that has prone to slower migrating motor complex, vagal tone, which Andrea is working on long term, but she's gone through more stressful times in her life the past few years. So she's healing that nervous system regulation. So maybe down the line you could like chug that celery juice.
I want to get back to my kombucha life. I want to get back. I want to be able to have a juice. But there are certain patients, they're like, I've been doing this and I feel awful. And I'm having
like 5 gallons of celery juice. And it's like,
we have actually had people who,
I'm exaggerating,
no,
but
we've definitely had
amounts of
we've had something like that where we're like, I think that's too much for anybody, but it just goes back to that bio-individuality, right? And so what works for you may not work for me, vice versa. And we need to constantly, anytime you see something, please think of that first.
Yeah. And there's a lot of ways to heal the body that if these foods aren't things that you can tolerate right now, that we can start to build resilience.
There's a lot of options.
There's a lot. So again, I think where did we land with that? It's valid. We just need to consider other options. Yeah. All right. Dr. Cole, the next question is a 2-parter. So I'm going to read one, and then Emily is going to read one.
Oh, wow.
I know. We didn't tell you, so it's okay. But you'll be fine. They're just similar enough that we felt like that it would be beneficial for you. We could get like a twofer. Like it was 2 people get a question on an AMA. So the first question is, I have recently been diagnosed with late onset type 1 diabetes. My doctor believes this was triggered by a big autoimmune flare-up I had after having COVID a few years ago. My insulin antibodies came back high and my C-peptide production is very low. I know that you cannot give medical advice. Thank you. Yes. But in your experience, do you believe type 1 diabetes is reversible? From everything I've read from traditional medicine, The belief is that your body is not producing enough insulin. You need medical intervention. However, I have always believed through holistic functional medicine that all autoimmune conditions can be healed through diet, lifestyle, and addressing the root cause. I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences with healing this type of autoimmune disorder.
All right. This person says, hello, I am now a 32-year-old female who has been diagnosed with hypothyroidism since I was 17. During my early adult years, I didn't take my diagnosis seriously. Lack of education on my part. I began diving into it more around my mid-20s, trying more alternative routes of healing versus the traditional model of being on Synthroid and thyroid medications. I had managed my levels some on my own, but was convinced to go back on levothyroxine by my endocrinologist and would like to get off of it. Last year, at age 31, I found out I have Hashimoto's. It was never told to me. I found it in my chart and asked the doctor to run tests to confirm I did in fact have it. Of course, they told me no change in treatment and sent me on my way. Through your help and others, I recently got my Hashimoto's in remission, but my TSH is now running high as I'm trying to come off the lifetime meds the endo wants me on. What can I do to help keep me in remission and begin to get off levothyroxine or Synthroid? Thank you.
Okay. So it's interesting that, I don't know if we planned this, I don't know if you guys planned this, but like there was that viral component with the first one where we just came off of that question. So it does show you that someone, had COVID, it triggered type 1 diabetes. And then we have Hashimoto's, two very different autoimmune conditions.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So there's over 100 plus autoimmune conditions and an additional 50 that has an autoimmune component to it. As I mentioned, Alzheimer's would probably be lumped into that larger, broad spectrum of autoimmune inflammatory issues. So you never want to be overly reductive and say, well, like this autoimmunity, i.e., okay, this is going to be the same outcome. It's not going to be the same outcome. Every case is different. It's between diagnosis, and every case is different on somebody's own set of variables here. So my job and what we do clinically is what's the healthiest we can get your body? What's the most healing capacity your body has over time? And for some people, it's 100% healing and it's in remission. For some people, it's 50, 60%. For some people, it's 70, 80%. And bringing as much function as we can. So let's look at type 1 diabetes first, because I think that's a unique circumstance within autoimmunity. When the immune system attacks the pancreas, the body cannot produce insulin, so the body is injecting themselves with insulin. I would say we have solid research in the scientific literature and a lot of clinical experience of significant decreasing of insulin dependence. Meaning we can have type 1 diabetics on very small amounts of insulin because their blood sugar is so stable, but they still need to be on it to some degree. I would say less insulin than even some type 2 diabetics that are insulin resistant, not insulin deficient, that are just unmanaged in the mainstream model of care. So, but their body is not able to come off of it entirely. Through, I would say most cases aren't able to come off it entirely. Now, I don't want to limit what the body's capable of doing. What's the healing capacity of that person? Right. Did we catch it early, or has the person had it for 30 years?
Right.
So if there is a case for if somebody has insulin antibodies that is on insulin that's been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, or I would say type 1.5, which is late autoimmune diabetes of adulthood, or LADA or LADA, which is like they call it type 1.5 diabetes, but it is autoimmune. It is more like type 1 in my opinion. So if you catch things early, there's a chance that you have enough insulin production on your own that you can come off of it. But normally people don't catch it that early or see someone in functional medicine that early. Yeah. It's like years later, then they're like, my health's not better. Yes, I'm on insulin, but I need to get my health in order. And that's oftentimes when we're seeing them. And I would say our clinical goal would be to let's improve their health as a whole. What are the things that are perpetuating? Because someone with one autoimmune condition is at an increased likelihood of other autoimmune conditions. So we see a lot of polyautoimmune type cases where maybe the type 1 diabetes was the first thing diagnosed, but they have lupus, ulcerative colitis, MS types, whatever. It could be anything. And our job is to decrease the severity and frequency of these flare-ups globally, like systemically. But there is some interesting studies out there that I wanted to share with you on this. There was a study done in China that in 2024, just last year, it was just one person. It was a case study on stem cells, which you all know we're a fan of stem cells and the advancement of stem cell sciences. And I've had some amazing researchers in this space. Anyways, this is just one person. It's a 25-year-old woman with type 1 diabetes. She began producing her own insulin within 3 months of receiving stem cells, reprogrammed stem cells from her own fat cells. Over a year later, she was still free of injecting insulin with stable blood sugars. There was another study in China, a lot of research coming of around stem cells in China. It was in Shanghai, a 59-year-old man. He had type 2 diabetes, but he had islet dysfunction, meaning he had some damage. He probably had type 1.5, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Or he was so unmanaged for so long that it damaged his pancreas. He stopped needing insulin 11 weeks after a stem cell protocol. So there's these small studies, these sort of reports that are coming out. That's why we want more advancements in larger randomized control trials of these emerging therapies like stem cells, which I had Rafael Gonzalez on. Go back and listen to that episode. He's one of the world's leading researchers in stem cells and anything tangential to that. There's also amazing studies done on fasting mimicking diets and ketogenic diets, which is really fasting mimicking if you think about it. It's both of those FMDs and keto diets in significantly decreasing the need for insulin, meaning they're not coming off entirely, but they're able to have stable blood sugar, robust health, but still low levels of injection or insulin or an insulin pump. So yeah, I think a combination of these sort of biohacks, things like stem cells, with other aspects within functional medicine, and these would be the different tools in the toolbox that we'd put together for somebody. And peptides could be in that list too, of how do we modulate the immune system in a positive way. Yeah,
and this would be a type of case too, where again, with working on these tools, I would highly recommend working with someone like our clinic and a professional who can monitor in real time and make adjustments and make sure that we're finding what's working for you. Because, it is, I've talked with a lot of people with, whether it's type 1 diabetes, type 2, and that can be almost, it feels a little daunting, right? Yeah. A little overwhelming. I was just talking with someone, a patient who, they felt like they left the hospital after being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
This was a sad story.
Not knowing anything. They had gotten really sick. They lost vision. They almost kind of fainted, and they went to the hospital and they realized, they're like, oh, your blood sugar is so high. It's 700. And they said, have you ever been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes? And the patient couldn't even see them and was like, no. And they said, well, you have it now. And they just got the blood sugar down.
This was a consult?
This was a consult. They made sure that she had regained her eyesight, and then they said, you have type 1 diabetes, and sent her on her way. No insulin, no nothing.
Yeah, wow.
And
that's extreme.
It's not okay with the way that people are being educated and taught how
lack of education around autoimmunity,
taught how to not just manage this, but optimize it. Yeah. And so I would really encourage you, if you're in any type of situation like this, like make sure you're working with someone who wants
to get the support and guidance you need.
Exactly.
Well, sorry, Dr. Cole. I think that's a great what you just said about the lack of education, because I think that goes into our what the Emily's part of the Hashimoto's and her saying, I saw it on my chart and was like,
we see that a lot. We see that a lot.
Yeah.
With type 1 diabetes, that's an extreme example that Emily mentioned. Hashimoto's, we actually hear that a lot. Because they'll run the TPO and TGA, the thyroid antibodies that rule in autoimmune thyroiditis, but there's no conversation around it. But they actually said what we hear a lot, because it's superfluous from a conventional medicine standpoint, because this end result's still going to be levothyroxine, Synthroid, or some other, thyroid replacement hormone. So the mechanism of action is completely different. The immune system's attacking the thyroid, but the end result's still going to be that, diagnose, match it with the medication. Everyone's put on the same medication or a generic version of it. So it's kind of extraneous to the conventional system. But from a functional medicine, mechanism of action matters here because, well, it's not true primary hypothyroidism. We have to deal with the autoimmune component. So yes, maybe Synthroid's needed if the thyroid's been damaged, similar to the damage of the pancreas. Right. But it's not dealing with the autoimmunity at all. So that's where we look at these things like environmental toxins that can trigger autoimmunity, viral components that can trigger autoimmunity, underlying gut health issues, which can trigger autoimmunity, chronic stress, unresolved trauma, which can trigger autoimmunity. So these are things that are just, you think a pill's going to do that? No. So that's why there's a lot of, like we said, education around autoimmunity and other inflammatory problems that is sorely lacking. But hopefully that's why we do the show.
Well, and that's what you just mentioned earlier, and I want to circle back to this, that you mentioned it in passing. When you have one autoimmune disease, you're twice as likely to have another one. And so this is not something you want to ignore. Even if you have one thing managed, the root of why it happened in the first place is incredibly important to talk about.
Yeah, and this isn't to fearmonger. It's just saying, like, look, empower you, because you can, do have agency on your health.
Well, education is power.
Right.
And it's like, you can't do better if you don't know better.
Yeah, knowledge is power. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, when we actually talk about this with them on our consults, are like, thank you. Like, most people aren't even scared. They feel relief. Like, I feel like I've gotten nothing, or I feel like I'm crazy.
Or they ignored it and told me it wasn't a big deal, but it doesn't feel like it's not a big deal. You do any amount of research, even a layperson can see this is a problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's no medication for it unless you're going to use an immunosuppressant, but that's not, they're not going to give you that for Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good point. Great question. So hopefully that clarifies things. Like, we want to see what your body's capable of. How long has it been since you've been diagnosed? How much function's there? But regardless, whether your body can move 100% in the positive direction or 75, no matter what, we will get improvement in outcomes.
Absolutely. There's so much that we can do.
Your body's amazingly resilient.
And it's so cool to see people, like, we have patients that have been with us for 10 years, and not because they need to be. It's because they're doing their check-ins and
we're seeing them
like
maybe
that.
Once a year.
Yeah, we're seeing them for their check-ins, or they just like the support and they just use us like
they like
would.
the community.
Yeah, and so they come and, I can think of a few patients that they were told that they had no hope. You're never going to get pregnant. You're never going to have a life. You're like, disease is debilitating. Like, plan your funeral. Like, see you in a few years. Now we have patients that have babies and married and like whole like new careers and ability. And it's not a death sentence to get an autoimmune diagnosis. But it is a check engine light that needs to be looked at.
Well said.
All right, Dr. Cole, question number 5. I feel like Mumbo number 5. Like, I feel like I need to we need to lay over music behind this. Sorry, the way I said it.
I love that. That's what you thought of.
Absolutely.
Like, my favorite song, Mambo number 5.
Caitlin
that dates you, actually.
Our person. I'm gonna punch you. Our one of our fellow employees here. She brought it up the other day, and I was like, I haven't thought about that song in like 30
That's where
years.
like all the different girls. I need little Monica in my life.
Yes, that one.
Wait, can you sing it right now?
No.
I just remember Monica for some reason.
Okay.
She's the one I remember in that entire song.
This made up person.
But I feel like that song came out like a few years later after like the whole Monica Lewinsky thing. That's how old the song is.
Of course, you
would
associate it with that. I'm like thinking,
I'm sorry.
You're weird
You
16-year-old.
You have
You're thinking of Friends Monica, not Monica
do think
Lewinsky.
of Friends.
We're thinking
Monica.
of cool
Both
things.
iconic 90s Monicas.
I'm gonna go look up this.
This says a lot
later.
about you.
Yeah.
If I know my 90s trivia, I would guess. I'm not. I don't really know it, but I if you had to tell me, and I did not know you were going to talk about Mambo number 5, but I would guess it came out in 98. Can we Google that?
Oh no, that can't.
Would you be able to guess? What would you guess?
2001.
I would say 2000s.
Okay,
early 2000s.
All right, we're doing this in real
Mambo
time.
number 5.
What do we get if we win?
Oh my Lord.
Starbucks.
Oh wait, guys. This originally, this is bad. The original version, this is how bad it is. It came from a Cuban musician. The original one, it was instrumental, came out in 1949.
Oh.
That's not what we're talking about, so I don't think we lost that
No,
one.
we want the one that we're thinking of with Monica.
Which, by the way, but...
Okay.
Oh, Lou Bega. All right. So, guys, this is bad that we're digressing
Everybody
so bad.
says
You
my
know the
husband
words.
looks
What
like
are sing it?
I'm not doing it.
Everyone thinks your husband looks like the guy who sings Mambo number 5?
Wait. What?
We'll look it up later.
Wait. I have to look this up.
All right. Okay. So.
That's why it's called something different. A little bit of mambo. It was the name of the album. Okay, no, wait. Guys, you have to wait.
You have to.
Right.
We need this.
Okay, here we go. Mambo number 5, April 19th, 1999. I was off by a year.
Oh, I was off by 2.
Wow.
Darn.
So
Over and under, you won. That's okay. Well, that means Emily is older than she realizes.
Whatever. You're still older than me.
But not biologically. So gonna hold that over you for the rest of your
You
life.
you don't know how old I am biologically.
I need you to run the lab so that I can.
Yeah, you're
Andrea
assuming.
found out her biological age, and she's a lot younger than
27.7,
and she's 52 in real life. Just kidding.
I look really dang good for 52. No, I will be 39 next month. And
we're counting down the days.
Emily is. My biological age is 27.7.
This is what you can find out through functional medicine.
I'm impressed.
It's an aggregate
truly.
of data. Fascinating.
It is. It's so cool, and I'm very impressed with my biological age. So I feel 27.
And see that number go lower and lower. You'll be Benjamin
I'm gonna
Button.
age backwards. Carnivore is aging me, de-aging me. All right. Question number 5. As a mom who has been frustrated with American formula options, I would love to hear Dr. Cole's opinion on the infant formula changes coming through the HHS. What changes can we hopefully expect to see, and will there be pushback from doctors on this? So do you want to give some people context?
Yeah, so the context is recently RFK and as head of HHS announced the department launch of Operation Stork Speed, which I think is kind of a cute name for it.
That's super cute.
Yeah. So it is really bringing, I think, a resurgence of research and transparency and access. I would say those are probably the main points of for infant formula, which is historically highly regulated by the FDA, and which FDA is under HHS. So some of the things that they're doing is bringing a new set of pair of research eyes on what is considered nutritionally sound for infant formula. So the last time that we really as a nation looked at the research around the nutritional array within infant formulas was 1998, a year before Momo number 5, coincidentally. but a lot has changed since then, and there's even though our understanding of nutrition may have evolved since the 90s, more than that, there's a lot of conflicts of interest in 1998. Let's just be honest. They didn't say that in the announcement. But when you look at a manipulated market of certain ingredients, when you have subsidized government money to big food around things like corn and soy, you can get really cheap corn and soy ingredients and derivatives to basically increase the profit margin of things like infant formula. And this is applied to lots of different foods too. But specifically with infant formula, you're going to see a lot of corn and soy things, different like things like seed oils and corn syrup and soy protein and soy derivatives within infant formulas. So it's good for profits, not necessarily the best, most nutrient dense, sound nutritional ingredients. So we just want science without presupposition. That's what part of what Operation Stork Speed is going to look at, is like, what's the best, most nutrient dense recommendations we can give companies to say, this is what should be in infant formula. This is our suggestion. Mm-hmm. The second thing that Operation Stork Speed is going to do is to make it easier for parents to get infant formulas from the EU, from the European Union, and other international sources of infant formula, because technically the laws on the books is that it's illegal to buy international infant formulas, which sounds kind of crazy. They don't really enforce it per se. If you were reselling it, there probably would be fines, and you would be in trouble for doing that. And there's probably ways around it. You can give me your have you been, are you wanted by the FDA as a parent? So, I mean, the point is they don't necessarily enforce this, but it's technically makes it really more difficult. The regulations around it makes it more difficult for parents that say, you know what, I don't like the standard American infant formula. I do want better ingredients for whatever reason, whether someone thinks it's not a good reason or not. Like, you should be able to, the argument is you should be able to buy something as a parent that you want for your kid. Mm-hmm. And the EU in many ways has stricter guidelines. They just have different guidelines around nutrition. And the other thing they want to do is involve NIH with the research of infant to adolescence, of what the role infant formula has on human health development over time. So that's the main things. This came shortly after a consumer report looking at the top infant formulas, and they found heavy metals in a certain percentage of them, I think about half. Mm-hmm. Now, not all were really high. I don't want to fearmonger around that study. If you get any plant protein, there's a chance that you could have higher levels of these minerals and heavy metals. They're not necessarily toxic. Some were concerning to consumer reports, and that's why we want better transparency. And that was the other thing I didn't mention. They want better ingredient listing. They want better third-party testing for things like heavy metals. And they want, they're going to make testing for glyphosate and forever chemicals as well, which consumer reports did look at that. So it's better research, better transparency, reevaluating the nutritional guidelines, and making it easier for parents to buy international formulas. That's Operation Stork Speed. So that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, do I think there's going to be pushback? I don't think so. I think this should be pretty universally accepted.
Options.
I would hope not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the flip side of this is people, like I was on News Nation the other week, and someone from Consumer Reports was giving their opinion on the piece that I was on, and they were saying, well, they're concerned with Doge cutting scientists, which, that's separate than health. Like obviously the whole point of Operation Stork Speed is to not be decreasing quality. So they're going to have to figure things out from a budget standpoint to have the proper people there to do the job that they want.
100%.
Yep.
So it sounds like the different departments need to figure things out and have it streamlined. So any thoughts on this? Okay, so I'm going to pick your brain. I'm going to put my interviewer hat on. You have little kids. Mm-hmm. What did you do?
I mean, obviously, ideally, I was breastfeeding, but I mean, for some women, we can't fully breastfeed. I had to supplement with all of my kids. Okay. And honestly, the options are awful. They're awful to choose from. If you're looking at any of the brands that we can just go to our grocery store and pick up, it's really hard. I mean, even the seed oils and the things that are in there, like there's just nothing that...
It doesn't look like it's something a kid should be...
No.
It's like you dumped like a bunch of weird powders and seed oil, like canola oil, into a tub, and we're like, here, feed this for the calories.
Yeah, it's mainly
like it's not about nutrients at all.
No, it's about calories.
So it makes sense why it always was kind of hard to find some European options. I didn't really know it was illegal. I'm not gonna lie. Did feel a little black market-ish, but I was just like, oh, it's just European. It's just harder, right? Totally understand now.
Some stuff at Walmart. Mm-hmm. There were some things that are like that were at Walmart.
Right. Well, but here's the thing though. There are a lot of loopholes that you have to jump through to actually create and have an infant formula brand in the US. A lot of loopholes, which I found this out with trying to research and find a better brand for my kids, because there's a brand that I love who has said on their website, like, hey, we call ours our toddler formula because of all the loopholes
because of the restrictions and regulations around infant formula.
Yeah. But they actually notify you on the website that our toddler formula actually does meet the requirements, even for infants, but we just can't call it that because of the
And this is sort
restrictions.
of hopefully where it's like smart regulation, right? It's like, there should be regulation on purity, but you shouldn't like sabotage parents to like want better formulas for their kids.
Yeah.
And so what are some brands? This may be the brand you're thinking of, but Serenity Farms is Serenity Kids. Sorry. Serenity Kids is one that has a A2 versus A1 dairy base. I don't know if they have a dairy-free one.
Do you remember the goat milk one?
I think that was a European brand.
That was a European
It's called
brand.
Hall.
So that's contraband.
Sorry.
Or has been up until now.
Sorry.
Yes, but and then I mean we could get real controversial, which I've done this before.
Okay.
I might get some hate comments, but you can actually make
hate comments on social media. We don't get that.
Oh my gosh. You can make your own raw milk formula.
Okay, let's go there.
Well.
Let's go there. So what did you do? Tell us what you put in it.
So my son, I needed to do this for him because he was struggling with any formula that I got him.
Yes.
And so I tried a raw goat milk formula that I got the recipe off of Weston A. Price.
Yeah, Weston A. Price is a great source for
I love Weston A.
fetal
Price.
development, baby development.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a recipe. It takes time. It's inconvenient. I will tell you that. And it doesn't smell the greatest, but because you're including things like molasses, cod liver oil, like you're not just giving raw milk, because it doesn't include all of the nutrients that they need. But you're including these different nutrients, and you do have to make it often, right? Because it doesn't last long. Yeah. So you can do that. And I found that it worked digestively a lot better for my oldest, my son. The spit up was not fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Please stay in. Please stay in.
My husband would be like, I hate burping him after I feed. Like he has a little PTSD from it, I think.
Yeah, which is all legitimate reasons why maybe people wouldn't want to do that.
Exactly.
Right.
Again, he would absolutely say, never do that again, in his opinion.
Interesting. Your husband would say that.
Absolutely. Nick would definitely say that. Where for me, I wanted what was digestively best for him, because, you know, the formula, he was constipated, he was more colicky because he wasn't digesting it well, but I had lost my milk supply. And so it was something, I had to figure out something, right? Yeah. So we've tried it all. But you know, I think that there should be so much. I'm right there with you, Mom. I was frustrated, still am frustrated sometimes with it, right? Because I've had to do it, had to supplement for all of my kids. But I do think when you
300 of them,
three of them, and we're complete. But yeah, like that's where I think doing your research, and I found, you know, Serenity Kids, right? They're like, hey, listen, we have this toddler formula, and there's so many restrictions, there's so many loopholes, we can't call it infant formula, but it technically does meet those requirements, right? Yeah. So I just wish it were so much more transparent, and we were able to like at least have the information out there of what this is, and how can we get better options that will be easy to digest for our kids.
Yeah. Yeah, so, radical thought.
And before we read the last question, to not do Alan a disservice, my husband, it wasn't Lou Bega, it was Lou Diamond Scott. So.
Oh wait, who's Lemon? Yeah, I could see that, but who's Lou Diamond Scott?
I don't know. He's some sort of actor that Alan has told me that
That's so funny that we brought Mambo Number 5 out. You're like, my husband's been told that he looks like the guy who sings Mambo Number 5.
Yeah, and my husband's half Korean, so like this is.
I love this.
Yeah,
I love this.
But yeah, I could see it like this as if he was older and this is him.
Wow.
So it's like.
Wait a minute. Yeah, absolutely.
You can see absolutely. So anyways.
We don't know who he is.
No, Alan knows. But anyways, when he listens to this later and he's like, Andrea, don't look like Lou Bega. I needed to correct that before I got yelled at. So.
I love that. All right. Last question to wrap us up. I love this. All right, Dr. Cole. Yeah. I heard you talking about the measles outbreak in the last AMA. Saying we threw this in. All right, finish it out. We shouldn't be alarmed about the outbreak and that we should be more concerned about chronic disease instead. Why would you say such an irresponsible thing when there is an outbreak of a contagious disease going on?
And this is talk about hate comments. So go ahead.
No, this is I understand.
No, not this. I'm talking about the Instagram post.
Thank you for wanting clarity. We're happy to clarify.
Yes, clarify. Absolutely. Yeah, way better than some people in the comments. So I appreciate that. Clarity, and they want to have a conversation about it. That's all good. It's getting hot in here. I'm a little nervous. The reality is, I think they misunderstood our point, right? And this, I don't know if they listened to the full episode or maybe just a clip on social media. I think that could be probably part of it, where it's like there was a part of a larger conversation. We clip for Instagram and TikTok like 90 seconds of it.
Barely. It's like 35 seconds.
Yeah, so maybe that's why. So listen to the entire episode for the full context of it, because that's actually the point of what I was talking about, a both and not either or approach, is that the minute we start talking about chronic disease in this nation, there's a media focus on measles outbreaks. So the context and nuance, the historical context and the mortality context around measles is lost with hyperbolic headlines. And so I think the timing is suspect as far as the attention is concerned. There was over 200 cases last year in 2024. Did you hear anything in the news?
No, not one time.
Not one time. So a lot of this is post-pandemic because we were all isolated. So this is, let's be honest, and I've seen significant mainstream epidemiologists, infectious disease experts talk about how this is a rebound response in part from the COVID lockdowns, because people were away from each other. So people weren't spreading measles around, which is very, very contagious respiratory viral infection.
Right.
So you're going to have a rebound response as people come back. You're going to see cases start rising again. So it was about over 200 last year. And I get it. It's a lot more. It's over, at the time of recording this, close to 400. And I'm sure it's going to be a lot more than that by the end of the year. It's going to be a bigger measles year, in part because of a post-pandemic rebound response.
Yes.
And not just us being isolated during the time and not spreading measles around, but there was a drop in measles vaccinations, because when we were locked down during the pandemic, people were missing their routine doctor's visits. So the childhood vaccination rate went from 92% to 88%. 92% of kindergartners were vaccinated in the 2019 to 2020 school year. And it went down to 88% of kindergartners were vaccinated in the 2024-2025 school age. So that's a 4% drop. The CDC recommends about a 95% vaccination rate to have herd immunity, which one shot of the MMR vaccine gets about a 92% protection against measles, and 2 shots of the MMR vaccine gets about 97% protection against measles. So, but let's look at this historical aspect of this and what I think this person's missing from our position on this. In the 19th century, right, in the 1800s, tens of thousands of people died from measles. In 1960, before the vaccine came out, we had decreased measles mortality by about 98%. Meaning from what? Nutrition and sanitation. So from 1800s to 1960, we decreased measles mortality by, I think, 95 to 98%. Meaning people really, it wasn't deadly.
Yeah. Before the vaccine.
And then when the vaccine rolled out, it improved it even better. So that's what I was talking about, is that this sort of fear mongering, and you probably have seen, I showed it to these girls.
This was funny. I'm sorry.
The Brady Bunch, it's going viral because on the Brady Bunch in the 70s, they were like, getting measles was like a fun thing to like miss school. And you didn't have to take medication, and you could just, not get the shot. You could just stay home. And it was like this lighthearted conversation about the Brady Bunch staying home from school when they all got measles and have like a measles party and they could all spread it. Cut to today, it is like apocalyptic type conversation. It is highly contagious. There are people that are at risk, specifically kids. We need to have this contextual conversation around it. So I don't want to make light of it, because people die every year from it. And actually globally, lots of people die from it every year. And that's largely because of sanitation and nutrition. Vitamin A, we talked about in last episode, decreases mortality of measles by upwards of 77% just through vitamin A, let alone talking about protein optimization and phytonutrients, vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D optimization. Like there needs to be more studies around this. We just know about vitamin A, but there's anecdotally supporting nutrition is going to decrease mortality tremendously. And that's why most people are dying globally, and why we in the United States decrease mortality by 98% without a vaccine. So I think just having a both and conversation around this and just saying, yes, the 2 people that have died so far from measles this year, 2. That is sad, especially if it's preventable. But we have such a hyper focus on this, which is infectious. I get it. We need to have a conversation about it. But we ignore the 400,000 people that die every year from type 2 diabetes, the 80,000 people that die every single year from autoimmunity. And I feel like when you have this whole conversation that we've been having around MAHA and chronic disease, and no matter what you think politically, we were having more of a conversation around our food and around chronic disease. And when we started having that conversation, let's start creating fear and talk about measles, and ignoring our food, ignoring American health, ignoring big pharma. So I think that this is that's my point here. Hopefully that's clear.
Yeah, and I think no one is saying loss of life is not sad, period.
Yeah.
What we're saying is, as a community here, let's just say in the functional medicine realm and right now, is we're so excited to have the conversation about the other 400,000 people that were ignored. Like, that's what we're excited about. Not because we don't want to say, hey, let's not have conversations around these
but we're excited that a light is being shown on 100%. People that do not have
that are
empowered.
Preventable.
Yeah, and that's preventable too. With measles is preventable. That's right. So is type 2 diabetes.
100%.
So I think having these both conversations, it's important.
We're just saying, hey, so glad that we can now open everybody's eyes to all of these preventable
and I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist on this, but I've kind of hinted around it here and there that I'm thinking, because you don't really know people's motives. But I don't feel like we'd be having the measles conversation if the person that is now HHS secretary wasn't him.
Yes.
Meaning if it was somebody else, I don't think the media would be, because it was like, oh, he's nominated. Oh, we're going to have this conversation. And you're going to see in almost every article or every news piece. And this person is going to be at the helm of this, and he's dangerous, and he's going to make this worse. That's the angle, really. Because we had over 200 people that died.
Everybody wants a villain. That's what makes good news.
Yeah. Everyone wants a villain. And this is specific. It could, I just think it's coming against a system that is very used to business as usual. And now it's like, well, business maybe not be as usual for the better, but they want to create fear in people.
Yeah. And I just think lastly to say that the fact that we want to talk about these other things too is actually the responsible thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So
hopefully you got my take on this. I think if you listened to the entire AMA last time, you would know that's basically, I said more today, but hopefully you can understand that this isn't irresponsible. This is not dangerous. I just think the public attention is disproportionate when you look at the context of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Dr. Cole. And let me say this before we go. Sorry, one more thing.
Yes.
If you also look at the statistics, is the West Texas outbreaks at this point, again, we could have big numbers, but if you look at from 2000 when it was quote unquote eradicated, but there still was dozens to a couple hundred cases to even a couple thousands of cases over the course of 20th century and 21st century, even after the vaccine. And but we called it eradicated, but people got measles still because people brought it in from different countries. But if there was a high percentage of vaccination rate, it kind of didn't really go anywhere, right? People didn't die. A few people would die every year in the United States, but it didn't go much. But what I was going to say is West Texas, a lot of it's centered around this Mennonite community, that the school has an 83%, the school district in the county, I think Wade County, Texas, don't quote me on that, had an 83%, was even lower than the average kindergartner class. But this Mennonite community had a 5% vaccination rate. That's the context that's not talked about.
Yeah.
It's like these isolated incidences, and it's like, well, New Mexico's connected to it, the New Mexico outbreaks, but then you look around the country, it's like one case, that's small. Because most people in most areas, I saw Maryland has like a mid to high 90 vaccination rate in Maryland. So like statistically, by the CDC's data, that shouldn't spread much at all. So I think that's the context sometimes that the news pieces miss.
Yeah.
There.
Miss or intentionally about?
Miss or scare. Who knows? Who knows? Let us know what you think in the comment section.
I'm sure you will.
You may not say it, but I'll say it.
Yeah.
So.
Anyways, if you want to learn more about our clinical work, telehealth center, lots of free content about this stuff and more at drwillcole.com. We'll see you next time.